Stargirl, Season 2, Episode 8? I think this is Episode 8, I can't remember. Because there's just a lot of stuff going on in this episode. And honestly, like last week, it didn't hit me the way I wish it did, you know? I've said it kind of since like his introduction in the last season. Rick is one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character. I think Cameron Kellman is doing fantastic in that role. He is just proving to me he is that generation of actor with like the great hair, the great skills, the chops that just make him in that Pattinson style. But sadly, even as good as he is, it just didn't make up for what was overall a okay episode. I get what we're doing here. It's kind of that thing we have to do where it's like Eclipso's coming, we have to fight him, we have to separate, then come back together in the end and do the right thing. I get it. Last week we lost Yolanda. This week is all about Rick and Beth. There's like two separate stories going on. And that's kind of something that bothered me about this episode was there was no like overlap in any of the story going on. It was just like distinctly over here, distinctly over there, as opposed to like the group moments where people come together. It wasn't great. And I don't know, maybe this is where like COVID kind of like really came into effect and it started to really mess up their shooting schedule, because it's like we're all, you know, hardly in the same shot together and it's just like over here, over there. I don't know. Let's start with the kind of like big story of this episode, and that of course is this idea of Rick. He is kind of like met by the teacher at his house, and she gives him like, maybe if you want to like go to college is where you can get a fresh start, but his uncle's like, screw that. You know, you're not going to college. You'll be lucky if you don't wind up in jail. Very, you know, characteristically a douchey uncle. I get it. It's just easy. And I know that's part of the appeal of this show. But sometimes I'm just like, yeah, okay, I get you. I want to say this too, actually, before we move on. I really like this season, and it's been pretty strong in some aspects. But I don't think it's been as good as the first season. Hopefully it kind of like picked itself up. But overall, I've just been like, it's okay. So Rick kind of runs into the woods and he hangs out with Solomon Grundy for a bit because they're kind of buddies now, which I genuinely like this scene. I think it was pretty cool to see that he just kind of like venting to this guy about like how his parents had like this old dog, and even though it was like sick and everything, he cared for it and he tried to like give it some good years before things went astray with it. That was kind of cool. A really nice moment to see that. He's like, you probably don't understand anything I'm saying, but he gets a pat on the back from Grundy to signal that he does know. And again, you can say what you will about the Grundy effects. They are as good as you could get pretty much from, you know, CW. They've mastered a lot of things, but the bigger, bulkier things, they're still kind of mixed when it comes to. I can get behind Grundy because emotionally it works in the story for how he's portrayed and all that, which is kind of cool. And then basically the idea comes into play that Rick is affected by Eclipso, and then he hears this story about like this bear that's been attacking people. Then it becomes like this monster, and these group of hunters are coming out into the woods to find it. And basically they like hear that this like 10-year-old girl was killed or like captured by this monster. They can't find it, and this leads him to like think that Grundy is becoming the monster he didn't think his friend was anymore. He talks to Pat. Pat brings Courtney out into the woods, and it's a really interesting story. Like, I think on paper, this is cool. It's very complex. It's very fun. It fits for the character. It doesn't make it about his parents necessarily, more than he is like confused at like why he chose to help Grundy in this way when Grundy was just going to betray him in the long run. That works for Rick, and I'm okay with that. Then later on, when he finds Grundy and consults him, he chases Grundy pretty much to like his home, and he's like starts beating him up when the fireworks start to come up because it's the 4th of July, and you get like the realization that he's not actually beating up Grundy, but Eclipso has messed up his mind, and in fact he was beating up his uncle to the point of death. And then at the very end of the episode, Rick gets arrested. Weird choice, and he breaks the hourglass. And again, I'm just like, I get it. I really get it. We'll have our redemption arc where everybody comes back and fights Eclipso. It's just really interesting. Like, we set up this really complex story with Rick just to have it end like this. Like, there's some weight to it, and it's kind of exciting, and you do see, like, the James Dean come out in this young man, which is very exciting to see. But also, I'm just like, okay, yeah, this was very... I don't want to say it's very COVID influenced, but it was just like, let's talk to these characters who are on screen with us, then we run over here to these characters that aren't on screen with us, and Cameron was very standalone in this when he did like all his stuff, which it really felt obvious this time around, which kind of sucked, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I will say it worked for the most part. It's good stuff. It's very much in line for what I think Rick's story would be in this show going forward, so I don't hate that. I think it works just as good. Nothing wrong with it. It's pretty cool. There's some like smaller moments in here that I really enjoy. I like when Courtney is talking to the staff because she names it Cosmo, and it's like, he's my friend and I want to help him, and maybe we should figure out how to help him when she's talking to Pat. Probably one of my favorite moments, it comes to the end of the episode when we see Barb and Mike are talking to each other and he calls her mom and they just hug it out. I'm just like, that's good, because Mike is the one willing to do the steps throughout everything. Early in the episode, he's like, you can help Yolanda by killing Eclipso. He gets it. This kid just knows what to say at the right time to make people happy at the sacrifice of himself. And that is a really cool character thing for him. I like Mike too. He's probably next to Rick is like my favorite character in the show. It's just like, he gets it. And I like when he just goes like, this is my mom. I don't really know what else is going on. That's my mom. I love it. It works. Well, what really surprised me about this episode was the Beth storyline. Now, I've been kind of critical of Beth's character just because I think out of everyone we've seen, she falls most in line to like the neurotic CW style kid where it's like, I can't make friends because I'm a little bit cringy. And that's annoying. But everything I had like to criticize that characterization comes full circle in this episode, and a great remark, because I'm just going to jump into it. Eclipso has kind of like been terrorizing Beth throughout the entirety of this episode. He poses as her parents and says, our divorce is your fault. And suddenly she's like trying to find any of the Dugans or the Whitmores to help her out of the situation. It just leads her to like literally encountering this child in the Whitmore house. And it's like, hey, I know you're Eclipso. And it's really interesting what happens, because I'm like, why the hell would you go this route with it? So one of the things like the 10-year-old boy as Eclipso keeps bringing up is, you people are all the same. You people, you people is probably stealing. Why the hell is Eclipso racist? It was such a weird thing to add. And I don't know who you blame for that. It just felt weird. I'm just like, do we have to, like, we're doing a really powerful moment with Beth here where she's like, I am a part of this team. I'm not as physically strong as the other people. I may not even be as smart or capable. I am a part of this team. I am capable as who I am. I know what I'm good at, and I can do all this stuff. Why did we also have to throw in this weird idea about, like, Eclipso is, like, using, like, her blackness to attack her? Like, it just didn't fit with what we were seeing, and it kind of leads to like a moment she has at the end of the episode of her mom, like how she was like the first African-American doctor to come to this town. But I'm just like, it doesn't work that way. It just didn't have that resonating factor. And then like when she's like seeing this hallucination of all like the JSA in their former years, and you see Eclipse, it's like, something's different. You're too weak, you're too girly, and you're too black. I'm like, wow, is the JSA that unsegregated? Like, what the hell? Seriously? Why do we have to make race a factor in this? I don't understand. But the exciting thing about that entire arc is that Beth's the only one who kind of like fought Eclipso and beat him a little bit, because she actually hurt him. Because like she's like, you're using these things that I already know about myself against me. Like, I know I'm not the best kid. I know I'm not the most popular, but I'm fine with that. They do like me. They are my friends. My family cares about me and they love me. You're just a dick. And it actually affects him, and he had to like leave the building because she's actually like, your tricks don't work on me, Jareth. I can see through your bullshit. And I'm like, that makes sense. That works for Beth. I think that's the best thing you could do with that character without making it cliched as how she acts. I thought that was incredibly cool and very fun. And it turns out that throughout the entirety of that scene, Dr. McNider was watching on the goggles. He's like, hey, you're the new Dr. Midnight. Good job, kid. It's perfect. I think it worked really. I'm just like, you do the stuff with Rick, and it's cool. It's very, you know, rebel without a cause. This kid who doesn't understand the world, or people don't get him. He's fighting this big bully, and then he becomes the bully. And then this scene is just like, hey, everything you've said about me, I already know. So screw off. I know my problems. You can't affect me that way. And she gets the one up on Eclipso. I think that works incredibly well for this show, and it was actually a surprise to see Beth have something fun to do. I liked that a lot. This story just worked. It was strong. It was capable. It had all the right beats emotionally, and that stuff made me happy. The other stuff with Rick, it's easy, but again, it's palatable for that character, and I can't complain too much about that. I just think you felt the COVID in this episode again, which kind of sucked, and you also just saw maybe the story is laying itself out a little too easily to see. Next episode's going to be all about Icicle Jr., so maybe that'll be different, but overall, it's a solid episode that gave Beth a lot to deal with, and Cameron Kellman, again, is a guy I think he's going to get big. He's going to do some great stuff. So that is my review of this latest episode of Stargirl. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and to subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.